Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Read a little bit more from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. So, second chapter, contents of the Gita summarized. And Kṛṣṇa and Arjuna are seated on Arjuna's chariot, and they are related. They're cousins, and they're friends. And Kṛṣṇa has agreed to be the charioteer for Arjuna during the battle. But Arjuna doesn't want to fight. So he's sitting there with his friend and his cousin, Kṛṣṇa. And it's just overwhelming for him. Overwhelming. He doesn't want to fight because it's his relatives on the other side. And Kṛṣṇa, his friend, is now taking the role of advisor. They're friends. They did things together, riding in the forest, laughing and joking, taking meals together as friends. Kṛṣṇa and Arjuna, they're related, they're cousins. But now Arjuna is in a dilemma, and he's turning to his friend. Give me some advice. I need advice. I need guidance. I don't know what to do. Please, you help me. Tell me what to do. Whatever you say to do, I'll do, because I just don't know what to do. And then because Kṛṣṇa is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kṛṣṇa, full of all knowledge and eternal, he's advising Arjuna, and he's starting by helping Arjuna to make the distinction between spirit and matter. So the series of verses here explain the nature of the soul and the nature of the external covering, the temporary body. So this is text 21. Vedāvināśinaṁ, this is Kṛṣṇa. Vedāvināśinaṁ nityam enam, ajam, avyayam, katham sa puruṣaḥ Pārtha ghātayati, hanti. Kṛṣṇa says, O Pārtha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, immutable, kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Prabhupada's commentary. Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu-saṁhitā, the lawbook for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Kṛṣṇa orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice, and as such, Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Kṛṣṇa is not violence at all, because at any rate, the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Kṛṣṇa is with full knowledge, so there's no possibility of sinful reaction. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna. Very special case, not to be imitated, but to be understood, the principle at work here. And because it is such a dynamic, intense situation, just before a war where people are going to be killed, then it captures the attention. But the principle can be applied everywhere. Everything has its utility. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita. So Kṛṣṇa continues. Samsi Jurnani Yata Vihaya Navani Grinati Naroparani Tata Sarirani Vihaya Jurnani Anyani Samyati Navani Dehi. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly the soul accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Famous changing body verse. The paintings and the dioramas and the sculptures showing the soul traveling in one lifetime through baby to child to young person to middle age to old age to decrepit to death. Changing body. And then accepting another body, and going through the same thing over and over again. Hare Krishna. Prabhupada's purport: change of the body by the atomic individual soul is accepted as fact. Even some of the modern scientists who do not believe in the existence of the soul, but at the same time cannot explain the source of energy from the heart, have to accept continuous changes of body which appear from childhood to boyhood, boyhood to youth, and again from youth to old age. From old age, the change is transferred to another body. This has already been explained in the previous verse. Transference of the atomic individual soul to another body is made possible by the grace of the Supersoul. The Supersoul fulfills the desire of the atomic soul as one friend fulfills the desire of another. The Vedas, like the Mundaka Upanishad, as well as the Tasvatara Upanishad, compare the soul and the Supersoul to two friendly birds sitting in the same tree. One of the birds, the individual atomic soul, is eating the fruit of the tree, and the other bird, Kṛṣṇa, is simply watching his friend. Of these two birds, although they are the same in quality, one is captivated by the fruits of the material tree, while the other is simply witnessing the activities of his friend. Kṛṣṇa is the witnessing bird. Arjuna is the eating bird. Although they're friends, one is still the master and the other is the servant. Forgetfulness of this relationship by the atomic soul is the cause of one's changing his position from one tree to another, or from one body to another. The jiva soul is struggling very hard on the tree of the material body, but as soon as he agrees to accept the other bird as the supreme spiritual master, as Arjuna agreed to do by voluntarily surrendering unto Kṛṣṇa for instruction, the subordinate bird immediately becomes free from all lamentations, and both Katha Upanishad and Svetasvara Upanishad confirm this. It's interesting, talking about sitting in the same tree, and similarly, they're sitting in the same chariot. Sometimes the body is also, can be thought of as to be a vehicle, they didn't have cars then, but like a chariot. So they're sitting in the same chariot. And Kṛṣṇa is actually driving the chariot, and he's fulfilling the desires of his friend who's seated there and wanting to go over here. Like he said to Kṛṣṇa, please pull my chariot up to a place where I can see who's assembled here on the battlefield. And Kṛṣṇa has the reins in his hands, and okay, horses, go this way, and there they are. So they're sitting in the same chariot. Sometimes there's compared, the horses are like the senses, and the mind, the reins that hold are like the mind, and the driver is the intelligence. And the passenger, if that intelligence isn't in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, then he's got blindfolds on, and the passengers go for a really wild ride. If the one that's holding the reins is blind, this doesn't end well. So yeah, they're sitting on the same chariot, and they're having this conversation. So also the example here is given as a tree, two birds sitting in the same tree. So there's a verse from the Upanishad, Svetasvatar, some Sanskrit here. Translation: although the two birds are in the same tree, the eating bird is fully engrossed with anxiety and moroseness as the enjoyer of the fruits of the tree. Arjuna's position in the chariot. But if in some way or other he turns his face to his friend, who is the Lord, and knows his glories, at once the suffering bird becomes free from all anxieties. End translation. Arjuna has now turned his face towards his eternal friend Kṛṣṇa and is understanding Bhagavad Gita from him. And thus, hearing from Kṛṣṇa, he can understand the supreme glories of the Lord and be free from lamentation. Arjuna is advised herewith by the Lord not to lament for the bodily change of his grandfather, his teacher. He should rather be happy to kill their bodies in the righteous fight, so that they may be cleansed at once of all reactions from various bodily activities. One who lays down his life on the sacrificial altar or in the proper battlefield is at once cleansed of bodily reactions and promoted to a higher status of life. So there was no cause for Arjuna's lamentation. Yeah. Hare Kṛṣṇa. That was 5,000 years ago. And Dharma and duty were very, very much the primary religious function. This battle sees after the battle is won and everybody's killed, the influence of duty and honor and all of this, it kind of disappears until we end up here 5,000 years later. Hare Kṛṣṇa. In the beginning of Kali Yuga, and so for us, chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, that's the sacrifice. That's the altar of sacrifice, is the Harinam. Kṛṣṇa was asking Arjuna to kill and fight. Kṛṣṇa is asking us, chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda. And whatever you do, whatever offerings you make, whatever sacrifices, whatever charity, whatever you do it as an offering to me. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, become free from the reactions. And the eating bird will not have to suffer the distresses and lamentations trying to eat the fruits. Kṛṣṇa